with ambassadors. We're here in our back office today because we're going to be meeting with our little buddy Zipper here. Good morning. Zipper is our corn snake ambassador here at the Center for Wildlife. So if you want to come on in, let me know that you're here. I'd be happy to say hello. Also, let me know if you have any questions about Zipper. He is our corn snake. He's very, very sweet. Hi, buddy. But just so you know, everybody I think there are a lot of people that are very weirded out by snakes, but Zipper is just the best. He's very sweet. He's who we often bring with us to folks that are a little bit more nervous about snakes. He's a great first time snake because he's just the best. He's very slow. He doesn't make a lot of sudden movements or anything like that. So this is Zipper. Good morning. Good morning, Zippy. Good morning, Jessica. Good morning, Rebecca and Xander. Hello. Definitely come on in, let me know where you're from, and say hi, and I'll be sure to give you guys a shout out. Zipper is just kind of waking up. He was bopping around in his enclosure a little bit, but it always takes him a little bit to kind of get on the move. But hi, Katie. Good morning. Zipper has been with us for about he's been with us for about 10 years now. He was someone's pet before that. He was a young man's childhood pet, and they went off to college, and the parents didn't want to take care of him anymore. So now he lives with us. He's just the best. He is very, very sweet. He is a corn snake. Corn snakes are typically a type of snake. I'm getting used to this whole backwards thing on the computer. Corn snakes are typically a species of snake that you would expect to see in a pet store. So they are commonly bred for the pet trade, and that is where Zipper came from. So he is not actually a wild snake. There are wild corn snakes throughout the United States. They usually occur in the southern half of the United States and out west a little bit more. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Jennifer. Good morning, Mandy. Maria, Ryan, hello. Landon is Zippy, his nickname. Yeah, we do often call him Zippy. Good morning from Wisconsin. That's awesome. Good morning, Renee. Hello. He is very beautiful. So we had a question about his coloration. So if you can see, I'll try to get him to uncoil a little bit so you guys can maybe see him a little better. But this beautiful orange color is really one of the more common types of corn snake coloration that you would see, especially in the wild ones. This little guy has been bred in captivity, and they will breed corn snakes to have all sorts of different colorations, including, lavender, albino, melanistic, which is really black. So you can find corn snakes that are for sale as pets in a lot of different colors, but this is the more typical wild type that you would see. And a lot of people have pet corn snakes, and they are a wild animal. They are they have been bred and domesticated down, but they are still a wild animal, and there's a lot that goes into their care. So we always advise folks to really, really think about owning a snake before you get one, because clearly, like in the case of Zipper, someone wasn't prepared to keep him, and he needs a lot of specialized care. Good morning, Renee, Beth, hello, and Evan, all the way from Ohio, Renee, that's awesome. Good morning, Beth. Yes, he does have this checkered belly. We call this his ventral side, and then this is his dorsal side. So the top of the body is the dorsal side, and that's where you'll see all these like checker or these like hourglass shapes, these splotches. Those are really wonderful camouflage for blending in with leaf litter and things like that. And then so dorsal side is like dorsal fin, that's where we get that word. And then the underside is called his ventral side, and that is very different. So he has scales, if you can see, that look like little diamonds all over his dorsal side that go down and are, laying on top of each other so that as he's slithering through brush or something, these are very easily cutting through things, and things will just kind of flow around them. But then on the underside of his belly, the scales actually change. So on his ventral side, he has these checkerboard bands here, and they look kind of like piano keys. And these are differently shaped so that when he's slithering, they kind of glide along the ground. So it's interesting to see the different shape of the scales and also the different colors of the scales on the different sides of the body. So he has some beautiful scales. Hi, buddy. He really loves hair. He loves to get himself all tangled in hair. So sometimes he'll try to do that. Hi, buddy. You got to say hello. All right. Hello, hello, Elena. Brendan says he loves snake and that the green anaconda is his favorite snake. That's awesome. A lot of people don't like snakes very much, and this is a very curious fact because many of the snakes that we have in our area are only really beneficial to people. They are not harmful to us in any way. In Maine specifically, we are lucky enough to only have constrictor species of snakes. So we do not have any venomous snakes that live in Maine. In New Hampshire, there is a very small population of timber rattlesnakes up in the White Mountains that's like pretty much extinct because it's just very far north for them, and so they're very endangered in the state of New Hampshire. In fact, scientists keep the location of that one colony that they know of a secret so that people don't go trying to disturb them. But timber rattlesnakes are more common the more south you go. But in Maine and most of New Hampshire, we do not have any poisonous snakes. And all the snakes that you see are snakes that are doing us a favor in keeping our rodent populations down. So we have little green snakes, garter snakes. We have black racers around here, and they're actually endangered in the state of Maine, so that's really cool. We have milk snakes. All of these snakes are really amazing rodent hunters and help to keep those sorts of populations down. To us, we also have water snakes in Maine, and a lot of people think that water snakes are poisonous, but they're not. They are harmless as well. So we are really lucky. We get to reap the benefits of having snakes without needing to necessarily worry about some of the more harmful things. And 99% of snake bites, whether you're talking about a venomous snake or a constrictor like Zipper, happen because someone is messing with a snake. So if you leave them alone, leave them be, the adage that they are more afraid of us than we are afraid of them is true, very true, and they will go about their business. So they look at us as big predators. They're not going to try to eat us. They're only going to bite us if they feel scared. So the best thing we can do is just leave them alone. I'm so glad that you guys like snakes because many times people are iffy about snakes. And I've noticed a generational shift in that the younger kids that I interact with do tend to like snakes a little more. So that's cool. Hi, Jason. How do I keep him so calm, Renee? He is naturally very calm. This is what makes him such a great ambassador. He was bred in captivity, so he is not like a wild snake. Corn snakes are not found in this area of the country. They are, though, one of the most common pet trade snakes. So if you go into a Petco or a PetSmart, you might see little baby corn snakes for sale. Something that's interesting is when they're babies, they're like 6 inches long. They're very short and tiny, tiny, very skinny. And they're very, very cute. And then you will adopt one, you'll buy one and bring it home and have it in a tank that's appropriate for that size, and they'll keep growing. So these guys can get up to be, 5-6 feet long. Zipper is actually, when he's uncoiled, he is 6 feet long, so he's taller than I am. And just because he kind of looks skinny, people don't tend to think that he can get that long, but he is very, very long, and that means he has to have a tank that's an appropriate size for him. They also love to climb, so they have to have a tank that's vertical and horizontal so that they can stretch out. In fact, one of the things we're most excited about for our new nature center in the new building is the new tanks for these guys, because they're going to be much taller than their current tanks, so they'll get to explore vertically and have some climbing space, because snakes do love to climb. You're so cute, Zippy. Let's see. Jennifer, what does he eat and how often? From 4-year-old Alexa. Those are great questions, Alexa. So this is one of the reasons why snakes don't tend to make great pets, because many snakes eat live prey. They will eat live mice. So you have to go back to the pet store every week, usually during the summer, and buy a mouse. So Zipper is currently just kind of getting his mojo back. In the winter, these guys will be very slow. They usually stop eating for months at a time. In the wild, they would hibernate, so they would, a lot of snakes in our area would go underground. Corn snakes, because they're living in more southern areas, will not do that, but they do get very inactive, very slow, and may stop eating. So Zipper actually didn't eat for about 4 months. And he just ate for the first time last 2 weeks ago. And we have started him eating every other week, probably for another month. And then once he gets going, everything's working and it's a little warmer out, he'll eat every week, which means we have to go buy a mouse every week. Some snakes eat dead mice. It's advisable to feed snakes dead mice. There's a lot of controversy about it, but we like to feed our snakes dead mice because the mice, we don't like to see them suffer. We don't want to necessarily have to feed anybody a live mouse unless they're a raptor or a predator we're trying to get back out into the wild and testing to see if they can hunt. And it's also not super safe. So there are many reports of snake owners who have left a mouse alive in the tank with their snake waiting for him to eat, and then left it unsupervised, and then come back and their snake is covered in bites from that mouse who's trying to defend himself from getting eaten. So it's not safe for the snake. It's not particularly nice for the mouse. The only reason that we do it for Zipper is because he really doesn't recognize dead mice as prey. So we have tried to get him onto dead mice, and he just won't. He won't do it. He doesn't really notice that they're food. These guys can see very differently than we can. They can see heat, so they can tell if something's warm or cold by looking at it. And his little face is making me laugh. And so when a mouse is alive, it's emitting a lot more heat. It smells a lot different. And then when it's dead, it's obviously colder. So he doesn't really recognize dead mice as being food. So we do have to feed him live mice. We go to Petco and get them. So that is an unfortunate thing and something that you have to consider when you are thinking about getting a pet snake. It's obviously not a small consideration. So he does eat mice, and in the wild these guys would eat many small mammals. They're famous for living in cornfields. That's where they get their name, because they would go to the roots of the corn plants and eat all of the moles and rodents that would eat up the roots. So farmers actually really love corn snakes because they are really great for rodent control. Other snakes that we have in our area are actually known to eat lots of different things. We see snakes eating frogs, eating insects when they're little, they can, and maybe even some birds. So they can eat a variety of things, but they're famous for eating mice. That's a great question. Joanne says, wish people realize these snakes are smooth and dry, not slimy. He is a beauty. Yeah, he is not slimy at all. I'm wondering where that myth came from. I think it's because they're cold to the touch, and so they can feel a little clammy, especially if they're in the wild and it's humid out. They might have some humidity on their skin or on their scales, and might feel a little cold and clammy, but they are not slimy. So they're not like an amphibian that has mucus on its skin. They have these dry scales, and you can kind of see they look shiny, but they're not actually slimy. And those scales are really important. They're made of the same stuff that our fingernails are made of. They're there to protect their skin so that when they're slithering around on their bellies, they don't scratch their skin. And they do molt their scales, usually more in the summer. So Zipper's molting every month or so right now. And they will molt them off, so they'll shed their skin, and it looks kind of like a long inverted snake when that happens. But yeah, they're not slimy. I don't know how that got started. Donna asks, is he a constrictor? Yes. So Donna, here, there are two types of snakes, two families of snakes. There are venomous snakes. Those are the guys that have fangs that make venom in glands in their heads and will use their venom to tag their prey, and then it'll slowly act on their prey and they'll follow that prey until it's dead. So they don't do much wrapping around their food. They're not actively killing it. They bite once, get the venom in there, and then they'll wait for that animal to die. And usually the venom is a neurotoxin, so it affects the central nervous system and causes the body to shut down. So those are venomous snakes, but constrictors like Zipper are going to actively hunt and kill their prey. So what they're going to do is when they find a mouse or a bird or a frog that they want to eat, they're going to stalk it. So just like a cat would stalk their prey, they're going to follow the little heat trails that are left by that animal, so the urine trails, the smell, and then they're going to pounce on it. Constrictors don't really have fangs like venomous snakes do. They have these little hooks in their mouth that kind of grab and hold on to food, but they're not true teeth, and they're very, very short and small. So they don't really have the fangs that are injecting venom into anything. And then what they're going to do is they're going to wrap up into a ball and coil around their prey and slowly constrict so that that animal is unable to breathe anymore. And so what they'll do is they'll basically slowly suffocate their prey, and then once their prey is dead, they will eat it. And they are able to eat things that are fairly large compared to them. So they are famous for being, that people say they can unhinge their jaw, which is kind of a misnomer. Their jaws don't really have hinges to begin with, so they have disconnected top and bottom parts to their jaw, and then the front here is also not connected. So when they open their mouths, they actually are using these tendons and ligaments that are attached to all of those pieces of jaw and stretching those four pieces of their jaw open. So they don't have a hinge that really unhinges, but they do stretch their mouths open very, very wide to eat their food. And then those little hooks that they have in their mouth help to work the food back into their bodies. Nice job. All right. Hi, Laura. Hi, Sue. Leanne, we have a ton of what I call red belly snakes. They are the cutest and so tiny. Yeah, so we have a lot of very small snakes around here, and they do tend to be really small when they're in their first like year or so, and they get a little bigger, but yours might not get married. Michelle, hello. Good morning, Kristen and Levi. Hello. Renee, hello. Jen Lynn, what is the average lifespan for a corn snake? That's a good question. In captivity, they are known to live well into their 20s, so 20, 25. In the wild, they probably won't make it that long, so 10 might be a good lifespan for these guys in the wild. But in captivity, you can expect, if they're well cared for, they have all the right enclosure requirements and food requirements, as well as, you know, enrichment and things like that, that they might live to be 25. So Zipper here is somewhere around 17, 18 years old. And he was a pet for a long time before he was an ambassador with us. You are just really intent on not looking at the camera right now, buddy. He's like, well, I posed earlier. What do you think? So now you can tell he's waking up a little bit. He's getting excited to explore. Oh, good morning, Olivia. Good morning, Christine. Yes, so Christine mentions that that there are definitely concerns about contracting different diseases from snakes, and this is something that can happen with many different species of reptiles, not just snakes. They can have salmonella on them, or E. coli, and it's just a great practice to get into, to wash your hands whenever you interact with any animal. And we also actually recommend folks washing their hands before they touch them as well. So Zipper here could be susceptible to all sorts of things that are out in the wild, as well as somebody else getting something from him. So we use hand sanitizer before and after we handle these guys, because it is good for us to protect them as well as protect ourselves. And they are less likely to contract or spread those things if they live in captivity the way that the Zipper does. We have never had an issue with Zipper or, you know, any kids developing anything from these guys, but we always, whenever we go into a classroom and have kids touching them, we always recommend cleaning their hands afterwards. That's a great comment. He's so funny. Wow, we have a lot of morning. I'll go down and then up. Hi, Scout in Connecticut. Hi, Zoe. We do rehabilitate our local species of snakes. So we have 5 species of snakes that live in Maine, and I would see probably like 2 or 3 of them in care here at the center every year. They're very rare. We usually only get a few snake patients every year, but this year we actually got quite a few. I think as people start rescuing them more, we'll start seeing them more, but we used to only get a couple of snakes each year. So we'd get garter snakes frequently. Unfortunately, something that happens to garter snakes a lot is that people will like hit them with their lawnmower, which really stinks. And we would also see unfortunately, a lot of intentional harm with snakes, people not liking them and hurting them because they think that they need to get them off their property or something like that. But they are very, very good for rodent control, so we do not advise ever intentionally harming an animal, of course, but then also keeping these guys around is a benefit for us. So we would see a lot of garter snakes, and then this year we had a milk snake as well, which is really cool. We also see little green snakes infrequently, and then we actually have black racers that live near us on Mountain A, so that's pretty cool. So yes, we do rehabilitate our local state species of snakes. These guys are a captive bred species, so if someone called us and said, hey, I found a corn snake outside, that corn snake needs to be brought to a rescue, like an animal shelter, not a rehabilitator, a wildlife rehabilitator, because this is not a native wild species, and that would be a domestic snake, a domesticated snake who wouldn't know how to survive in the wild. Do you ever get nervous around snakes or the other? No, I never get nervous around Zipper or Elvis, our king snake. They will sometimes, if they think your fingers smell like mice, you do sometimes have to be careful, but usually they're fine. Elvis sometimes will do this little tail rattle that lets you know you need to be careful, but they've never really bitten me, so they're very sweet, and they're also really used to being handled, more so than some of our other ambassadors. These guys are very good. Sometimes with some of the raptors, I get a little nervous about them stepping off my glove. If I'm wearing a glove on my hand, a leather glove, I get worried if they're going to step to the side too much, because then their talons might get my skin. But we're very safe with all of our ambassadors, and they're also really well trained and really used to everything that we do, and as long as you know what their boundaries are, they're very good. But yeah, I don't really get nervous really ever about Zipper. He's a sweet, sweet boy. He does have the most adorable face, Jennifer. He's so cute. Elena, is the difference between venom and poison that poison needs to be eaten or touched to be harmful, and venom needs to be injected by claws, teeth, or fangs? I would assume that sounds correct. I'm not entirely sure. I think venom is something that needs to, enter the bloodstream, and then poison, is something that needs to be ingested or like touched to get a skin reaction. That is my understanding. So let's see. Hi, Scout. Hello, Cindy. Hi. Yeah, so Zipper is very sweet. Our snakes that live up here are not normally this calm, so that is why we do not have any species of local snakes as ambassadors, because a wild snake is going to behave very differently than a pet snake, than a domestic captive bred snake. So Zipper was never in the wild. He doesn't really know how to be a wild snake. And he also doesn't have the right tools and adaptations to survive up here in New England. He would be from more south. So Connecticut is really like as close as you would, like New Jersey, Connecticut, that they're really scarce in that area, and then you'd have to go pretty far down south and then out west as well. So they are more of a field occupying snake. Yeah, so he is very sweet, but not a wild animal. And we always try to make that distinction, because when you see me interacting with Zipper, when you see Zipper sitting here so nicely and, you know, kissing my face and just being adorable all around and not having any sort of a stress response, that can make people maybe misunderstand the way that a wild animal would behave. So this is obviously a domestic snake, and we can just tell by how easygoing they are. A wild snake would be very stressed out, very fast, trying to get away, and potentially biting or creating musk, which is something that they secrete when they're scared to kind of make them taste bitter and bad to a predator. So we obviously don't want to do that for a wild snake, and that's why we don't have them as ambassadors. There are some domesticated species that are local to us. So milk snakes have been domesticated and do make, would make a good ambassador. So if that opportunity ever arises, we will of course consider it. But these guys are really the closest thing we can get to our local species. And we do have some of their cousins up here. The black racer is a cousin of these guys. Sometimes these are called red rat snakes, and the black racers are sometimes called red rat or black rat snakes. So they are cousins. Good morning. You guys may see Zipper sticking his little tongue out. He is sniffing when he's doing that, so he is smelling with his tongue. That tongue is forked, so we know that all of the snakes that we see have forked tongues. And what is interesting is that that tongue is going to come out, and he's going to basically be licking the air. The scents from the air will be collected on the saliva on his tongue, and then he'll bring it back into his mouth, and a little organ at the roof of his mouth is going to analyze those scents and tell him what's around. So it's called a Jacobson's organ, and it's actually found in many species of animals. Horses have it too. So if you ever see a horse like sucking the air in through their teeth, that's what they're doing. They're smelling and getting more airflow into that Jacobson's organ. So he has the same organ at the roof of his mouth too. I get a lot of questions about his ears. He doesn't really have typical ears. He has a little hole, but they don't really hear very well. They do feel vibrations quite well though. But they don't have typical ears. And then their nostrils are really just for breathing. They don't really smell through those nostrils that you can see. You're a good boy. They also don't really have eyelids. They have one scale that covers their eye, and that will actually be shed along with the rest of their skin when they are molting. So he has one scale that covers his eye, and that will shed too. So sometimes you'll encounter snakes, and that happens usually their colors are muted, they're not as colorful, and they actually can't really see that well. So this is why we never recommend touching a snake that looks like it might shed, because that is when a lot of snake bites occur. It's the snake not being able to see and assuming you're a predator, and so it's always good to be careful around these guys when they're about to shed, because they can't really see you that well. They can't really see that you're reaching for them. So a pet snake even might bite. Hi, buddy. So we are going to sign off. If anyone else has any questions about Zipper, please feel free to leave them here. Can you have snakes with other pets in the house. So if you have a snake in a tank, I think that would be fine. And again, we always recommend really doing your research before considering a pet snake, because they are a lot of work, and do need special care and eat mice. So if you're prepared for all of that, then we can. But it's always good to rescue. There are amazing reptile rescues that do a really good job of rehoming snakes that need homes. This happens a lot with snakes. People purchase them and they're not prepared for a snake as a pet, and then they either need to they need to get them rehomed or sent to an adoption facility. So there are a lot of great reptile rescues out there. We have one called Herp Haven in Maine that's really wonderful. So definitely, if you're considering getting a snake, adoption is the way to go. There are lots of snakes out there that need a home, and the other good thing about that is that you might be finding a snake that's already full grown, and you'll know what size tank and facilities you need. You won't have to buy tanks upon tanks upon tanks as they get bigger. So nice job, Zippy. Thank you guys so much for joining. Hi, Katie. Hi. We're just signing off. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us. We will be back again tomorrow. So please remember to tune in tomorrow, and we will see you then. Thanks, guys. Bye.